Hyunwoo Kim stood at the window of the human ship and watched the alien vessel grow larger. His hands shook a little as he fixed his tie. Today would change everything for Earth. Either humans would make friends with the powerful Corvani Empire, or they would make terrible enemies. "Dad, are you scared?" asked a small voice behind him. Hyunwoo turned to see his 8-year-old son Woo Jin standing in the doorway. The boy's dark eyes were wide with worry. Hyunwoo had brought his son on many diplomatic trips since his wife died 2 years ago. There was no one else to watch the boy, and Woo Jin was always good during meetings. "A little," Hyunwoo said honestly. "But sometimes being scared means we're about to do something important." Woo Jin nodded and walked over to hold his father's hand. Together, they looked out at the massive alien ship. It was made of some kind of crystal that caught the light of nearby stars. The whole thing seemed to hum with energy, even through the vacuum of space. Captain Jae-ho Lee's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Ambassador Kim, we're ready to dock. The aliens are expecting us in 30 minutes. Dr. So-young Park hurried into the room, carrying a tablet full of notes. She was Earth's best expert on alien languages, though she had never met any real aliens before today. None of them had. "I've studied all their messages," she said quickly. "The Corvani seem very formal. They care a lot about respect and proper behavior. Just be polite and follow their lead." Hyunwoo nodded. He had been a diplomat for 15 years. He knew how to be polite. But these weren't humans from other countries. These were beings from another world entirely. The docking went smoothly. The Corvani had built a special chamber where humans could breathe while meeting with them. When the airlock opened, Hyunwoo got his first look at the aliens who ruled this part of space. They were tall, much taller than humans, with bodies that looked like they were made of living crystal. Light seemed to move through their transparent skin in slow waves. They had no mouths that humans could see, but somehow they could speak. Their voices sounded like music mixed with the ringing of glass bells. The leader was clearly the largest one, wearing what looked like a crown made of twisted metal and gems. This had to be Empress Veltara. Behind her stood other aliens in military uniforms. One of them, with red crystals growing from his shoulders, watched the humans with obvious dislike. "Welcome," said the Empress. Her voice was beautiful but cold, like wind chimes in winter. "I am Empress Veltara of the Corvani Empire. You may approach." Hyunwoo walked forward with Dr. Park beside him. Woo Jin stayed close to his father, trying not to stare at the amazing crystal beings. The boy had always been fascinated by pretty sounds and lights, and the aliens were both. "Your Imperial Majesty," Hyunwoo said, bowing as Dr. Park had suggested. "I am Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim of Earth. We are honored by this meeting. Humanity hopes to build friendship between our peoples." What happened next would haunt Hyunwoo for the rest of his life. The moment he finished speaking, every alien in the Yo room went completely still. The beautiful lights under their crystal skin stopped moving. The air itself seemed to freeze. "Barbaric," whispered one of the aliens. "Offensive," said another. The red-crystalled military alien stepped forward, his whole body now glowing with angry orange light. "Empress, this creature insults you with its primitive noise-making. It speaks without harmony, without proper tone. It treats you like an animal." Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. "I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" Dr. Park grabbed his arm, her face pale with fear. She had studied their language but clearly missed something important. Empress Veltara's voice was now as cold as space itself. "Commander Talresh speaks truth. Your speech is an insult beyond measure. You produce sound without beauty, without respect, like the cry of a dying beast." "Please," Hyunwoo said desperately. "We didn't know. We meant no disrespect. Let me try again." But Commander Talresh was already signaling to his soldiers. "Ignorance excuses nothing, human. Your kind are acoustic parasites. You pollute the air with your ugly noise." The Empress raised one crystal hand. The room fell silent except for the terrified breathing of the human delegation. Woo Jin pressed closer to his father, sensing the danger even though he didn't understand the words. "The ancient laws are clear," Veltara announced. "Those who offer grave insult to the throne must face death. It is the only way to cleanse the dishonor. What? Dr. Park gasped. For a misunderstanding? There is no misunderstanding, the Empress replied. Your ambassador spoke to me as if I were a savage. In our culture, speech without harmonic beauty is the greatest possible insult. It suggests the speaker thinks the listener is too primitive to understand proper communication. Captain Lee's voice crackled through their radios. Ambassador, we're seeing weapons powering up on their ship. What's happening over there? Hyunwoo couldn't answer. His throat felt frozen with fear. This was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. Now they wanted to kill him for talking wrong. 2 Corvani soldiers moved toward him. Their crystal bodies had turned dark red, and low, threatening, sounds came from somewhere inside them. Dad! Wu Jin cried out, grabbing his father's jacket. Your death will serve as a lesson, Commander Talresh said with satisfaction. Other humans will learn to approach the Empire with proper respect or not at all. Dr. Park stepped between the soldiers and Hyunwoo. Please, we can fix this. We can learn your proper speech. Don't kill him for not knowing. But Empress Veltara had already turned away. The law cannot be changed. Prepare the harmonic disintegrator. The soldiers grabbed Hyunwoo's arms. Their crystal hands were surprisingly warm, but their grip was stronger than steel. As they dragged him toward a door that had just opened in the wall, Hyunwoo could only think of his son. Wu Jin would be alone now, just like when his mother died. Take care of Wu Jin, he called to Dr. Park as the soldiers pulled him away. The last thing he saw before the door closed was his son's terrified face, tears streaming down his cheeks as Dr. Park held him back from following his father to his death. The execution chamber was a room of pure crystal. The walls, floor, and ceiling all glowed with soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center stood a platform surrounded by tall crystal pillars that hummed with deadly energy. Hyunwoo had stopped struggling. The Corvani soldiers were too strong, and fighting would only make things worse for Wu Jin and the others. He thought about his wife Miran and how she used to sing their son to sleep. At least he would see her again soon. The harmonic disintegrator uses sound waves to break apart living tissue, Commander Talresh explained with cruel pleasure. It is considered a merciful death among our people because it is beautiful to hear. Your primitive ears will experience our finest death song. They pushed Hyunwoo onto the platform. Crystal bands grew from the floor to hold his arms and legs in place. He couldn't move now even if he wanted to. Through the transparent walls, he could see into the main chamber where Dr. Park was holding Wu Jin. The boy was crying and trying to break free from her grip. Captain Lee was arguing with someone on his radio, probably trying to get help that would never come in time. Empress Veltara entered the execution chamber with several other high-ranking Corvani. She moved to a control panel covered in crystal, buttons that glowed different colors. Any last words, human? She asked without looking at him. Hyunwoo thought for a moment. I'm sorry we offended you. We really didn't know. I hope someday our peoples can understand each other better. The Empress paused with her hand over the controls. For just a second, something flickered in her crystal features that might have been surprise. Then her expression hardened again. Understanding requires both sides to be civilized, she said coldly. Your kind has proven you are not. She pressed the first button. The crystal pillars around Hyunwoo began to glow brighter and hum louder. The sound was actually quite beautiful, like a choir of angels warming up for a song. He closed his eyes and tried to think of something good. Then he heard his son screaming, Dad, no, stop hurting my dad. Hyunwoo opened his eyes to see Wu Jin burst through the chamber door. The boy had somehow gotten away from Dr. Park and run past the surprised guards. Now he stood in the middle of the execution chamber, small and defiant, facing beings who could crush him without thinking. Get back, child, Commander Talresh snapped. This does not concern you. It's my dad, Wu Jin shouted. You can't kill my dad. The Empress looked down at the small human boy with something that might have been curiosity. Remove the offspring, she ordered her guards. But as the soldiers moved toward Wu Jin, something wonderful and terrible happened. The boy began to sing. It started as just crying, the broken sobs of a child who was about to lose his father. But Wu Jin had always been special with sounds. His mother had noticed it when he was very small. He could hear music in everything and copy any tune perfectly after hearing it just once. Now, in his terror and love and desperate need to save his father, that gift exploded into something no one expected. The sobbing became a melody. The melody became a song. And the song became something that had never been heard before in the crystal halls of the Corvani Empire. Wu Jin's voice rose and fell in patterns that shouldn't have been possible for a human throat. Harmonies layered on top of each other, creating sounds within sounds. The simple Korean lullaby his mother had taught him transformed into something that spoke directly to the heart. Every Corvani in the chamber froze. The execution stopped. The crystal pillars went silent. Even the lights in the walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with the boy's voice. Empress Veltara staggered backward like she had been struck by lightning. Her crystal skin flashed through colors that had no names, deep purples and golds that pulsed with each note of Wu Jin's song. "Impossible," whispered Commander Talresh. "How can a primitive species produce harmonic resonance?" But it was more than just harmonics. The other Corvani could make beautiful sounds, but their voices were cold and perfect, like mathematical equations made into music. Wu Jin's song was warm and alive. It carried emotions that the crystal beings had forgotten they could feel. The song told a story without words. It spoke of a mother's love for her child, of quiet nights and gentle hands and safety in the darkness. It spoke of loss and fear and the desperate love of a boy who would do anything to save his father. Empress Veltara felt something crack inside her crystal chest. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in centuries. The memory of what it was, like to care for someone more than yourself. The song changed, becoming deeper and more complex. Now it spoke of hope and dreams and the way love could bridge any distance. The boy was pouring his whole heart into his voice, giving everything he had to save his father. Dr. Park had reached the chamber doorway and stood there with tears streaming down her face. She was a scientist, but she didn't need instruments to understand what was happening. Wu Jin wasn't just singing, he was showing these alien beings something they had lost long ago. The song reached its peak, then slowly, gently, faded into silence. Wu Jin swayed on his feet, exhausted from giving so much of himself, but his eyes never left his father's face. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the boy's heavy breathing and the distant hum of the alien ship's engines. Then Empress Veltara spoke, and her voice was different now, softer, more human. "Release him." "My Empress?" Commander Talresh couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I said release the human." Her crystal hands were shaking as she moved away from the execution controls. "The child, what he did, how is this possible?" The crystal bands holding Hyun-woo melted back into the floor. He stumbled forward and fell to his knees, pulling Wu Jin into his arms. The boy collapsed against his father's chest, too tired to cry anymore. "I don't understand what just happened," Hyun-woo said quietly. "But thank you." Empress Veltara stared down at them with eyes that now seemed to glow with inner light instead of cold crystal fire. When she spoke again, her voice carried harmonics that the humans had never heard before, warm tones that spoke of wonder and something that might have been the beginning of respect. "Neither do I, human father. Neither do I." Dr. So-Young Park's hands moved quickly over her tablet as she tried to understand what had just saved Hyun-woo's life. The execution chamber had been cleared, and the humans were now in a smaller room that the Corvani used for important meetings. But instead of being prisoners, they were suddenly guests. The boy's vocal patterns, she muttered to herself, studying the readings her equipment had captured. The harmonic frequencies. This shouldn't be possible with human vocal cords. "Captain," Lee paced near the crystal walls, listening to reports from their ship. "Our instruments went crazy during the singing," he told the others. Whatever Wu Jin did, it affected their whole vessel. Energy readings spiked everywhere. Wu Jin sat quietly next to his father, leaning against Hyun-woo's side. The boy was still tired from his song, but his eyes were bright with curiosity. as he watched the crystal patterns moving in the walls around them. "Dad, why do their voices sound like music?" he asked. "I don't know, son. Dr. Park is trying to figure that out." The door opened with a sound like wind chimes, and Empress Veltara entered alone. Without her crown and the formal robes from before, she looked less frightening. Her crystal skin now glowed with soft colors that seemed almost friendly. "Ambassador Kim," she said, and her voice had warm tones mixed with the cold ones. "I must speak with you about your child." Hyunwoo stood up, keeping Woo Jin close beside him. "Your Majesty, I don't understand what happened either. Woo Jin has always been good with music, but nothing like this." "Music?" The Empress tilted, her crystal head. "Is that what you call harmonic communication?" Dr. Park looked up from her tablet. "Your Majesty, may I ask how your people normally communicate? We thought you spoke like we do, just with different sounds." "We do not speak as you understand it," Veltara explained. "We share thoughts and emotions directly through harmonic frequencies. Each tone carries meaning. Each harmony expresses relationship between ideas. When your ambassador first addressed me, he made sounds with no harmonic content, no emotional resonance. It was like screaming random noise at someone and expecting them to understand. But Woo Jin's song," Hyunwoo said slowly. "You understood that?" The Empress moved closer to the boy, her crystal features showing something like wonder. "More than understood. I felt it. When your child sang, I experienced emotions I had forgotten existed. Love, fear, hope, sacrifice. My people eliminated such feelings long ago, believing them to be weaknesses." "Eliminated emotions?" Dr. Park asked, horrified. "We evolved beyond them," Veltara said, though she now sounded less certain. "We became pure logic, pure harmony. It made us stronger, more advanced. We conquered the galaxy through perfect coordination and flawless communication, but also cold," Woo Jin said quietly. Everyone looked at the boy in surprise. "Your voices are pretty, but they don't feel warm like Mom's used to be." The Empress stared at him. "Your mother? She also sang?" "She taught me songs before she died," Woo Jin said. "She said music was like hugs you could hear." Something in Veltara's expression shifted. Her crystal skin flickered through colors that seemed to show inner struggle. The door chimed again, and Commander Talresh entered with two other high-ranking Corvani officers. The military leader's crystal skin showed angry red patterns. "My Empress," he said stiffly, "the Council demands to know why the human's execution was stopped. Some question your judgment in this matter." "The child demonstrated abilities that require investigation," Veltara replied coolly. "A trick," Talresh snapped. "Some kind of technology hidden in the offspring. These primitives cannot naturally produce harmonic resonance. It goes against everything we know about evolutionary development." Dr. Park stepped forward boldly. "Commander, I can prove it's natural. Woo Jin, would you sing something else, something short?" The boy looked at his father, who nodded. Woo Jin stood up and began to hum a simple tune, just a few notes from a children's song about stars. But even that simple melody carried the same impossible harmonics, the same emotional warmth that had stopped the execution. One of the officers with Commander Talresh actually stepped backward in shock. "The resonance patterns. They're affecting our neural crystals directly." "Impossible," Talresh said, but his voice had lost some of its anger. "Not impossible," said a new voice. Another Corvani entered, this one older with white crystal formations growing from his skull like a crown. "Fascinating, High Harmonist Catherine," the Empress said with obvious respect. "You heard the reports?" "I felt them," the old Corvani said, moving closer to examine Woo Jin. "The child's song reached me 3 chambers away. Such power and such beauty. I have not experienced its like in 300 years. "High Harmonist," Commander Talresh said desperately. "Surely you don't believe these animals can match?" "Corvani harmonic mastery." The old being's crystal eyes fixed on the military commander. "They do not match it, young Talresh. They exceed it. Our harmonics are mathematically perfect but emotionally empty. This child combines technical ability with something we lost long ago. The power to touch another being's soul. Our souls are perfectly developed, Talresh protested. Are they? Kethran asked gently. When did you last feel joy at a beautiful sunset? When did you last grieve for a fallen comrade? When did you last love something more than duty? The commander had no answer. Empress Veltara watched this exchange with growing understanding. High Harmonist, what do you recommend? The old Corvani studied the humans for a long moment. These beings may hold the key to something we have lost, but there are those in the Empire who will see them as a threat to our superiority. As they should, Talresh muttered. Or, Veltara said slowly, they could be the greatest gift we have ever received. She knelt down to Wu Jin's eye level, her crystal features soft with newfound warmth. Child, would you be willing to teach us? To show us how to sing with feeling? Again? Wu Jin looked at his father, then back at the Empress. Will you promise not to hurt Dad anymore? I promise, she said solemnly. Then I'll try, the boy said. But I don't know how to teach it. Music just happens. High Harmonist Kethran chuckled, a sound like silver bells. The best teachers often say that, young one. Commander Talresh's skin flashed angry red. My Empress, the Council will never accept this. An alliance with primitives, learning from children, it goes against everything the Empire stands for. Veltara stood slowly, and when she spoke, her voice carried new harmonics, warm tones mixed with steel. Then perhaps it is time the Empire learned to stand for something better. 3 days later, Hyunwoo stood in the most beautiful room he had ever seen. The grand resonance chamber was carved from a single massive crystal that rose from floor to ceiling. Thousands of smaller crystals grew from the walls like flowers, each one designed to carry sound in perfect harmony. The room could hold 10,000 Corvani, and today it was full. I can't do this, Hyunwoo whispered to Dr. Park. I'm not a singer. I can barely carry a tune in the shower. You don't have to be perfect, she whispered back. Remember what we practiced. Just follow Wu Jin's lead and sing from your heart. Dr. Park had spent the last 3 days studying Corvani harmonic theory with High Harmonist Kethran. She had learned that their music was built on mathematical relationships between sounds, but it had become cold and empty over the centuries. The humans brought something different, the ability to put real emotion into those perfect equations. Wu Jin stood between his father and Dr. Park on the small platform at the center of the chamber. The boy seemed calm, though Hyunwoo could see his hands shaking a little. Thousands of crystal beings surrounded them, their bodies creating a forest of living light. Remember, Dr. Park said quietly, we're not trying to copy their style. We're showing them something new, how human voices can work together with Corvani harmonics. Empress Veltara sat on a throne made of singing crystal at the far end of the chamber. Her voice carried easily through the perfect acoustics. Citizens of the Empire, today we witness something that has never been attempted. 3 members of the human species will participate in the grand resonance. A wave of harmonic murmuring passed through the crowd. Many of the sounds were clearly disapproving. High Harmonist Kethran stood beside the throne. The test is simple, his ancient voice rang out. These 3 must create a song that moves the assembled court. If they succeed, their species will be granted full diplomatic status. If they fail, he didn't need to finish. Everyone knew the penalty for failure would be death. Commander Talresh was also present, standing with a group of military officers. His crystal skin glowed with satisfaction. He had spent the last 3 days making sure this test would be as difficult as possible. The traditional grand resonance requires participants to tell the story of their people's greatest triumph. Talresh announced, but since humans have no great triumphs, we have chosen a different challenge. Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. They had practiced the story of humanity's journey to the stars. Now they would have to improvise. The humans will tell the story of loss, Talresh continued, since that seems to be their specialty. They will sing of endings, of failure, of weakness. The crowd's harmonics grew more excited. This would be entertaining. Watching the primitive aliens fail at something the youngest Corvani child could do. But Empress Veltara leaned forward on her throne. An interesting choice, Commander. Loss is something we Corvani have little experience with. High Harmonist Kethrin nodded slowly. Indeed. We have been so focused on victory that we have forgotten loss can also teach us. The ceremony began with traditional Corvani opening songs. The sound was incredible, 10,000 crystal voices joining in perfect mathematical harmony. It was beautiful but cold, like listening to music made by computers. Then it was the humans' turn. Wu Jin looked up at his father and smiled. Dad, remember the song Mom used to sing when I was scared? Hyun-Woo's eyes filled with tears as he remembered. Miran's lullaby about a little bird who got lost but found its way home. She had sung it the night before she died. I remember, he whispered. Let's sing it for her, Wu Jin said, and for all the people who miss someone they love. The boy's voice rose, clear and sweet, beginning the simple melody. But as it had before, the song transformed in his throat, becoming something more than human voices should be able to create. Dr. Park joined in, her voice providing structure and harmony, based on what she had learned about Corvani music theory. Her part was the bridge between human emotion and alien mathematics. Then Hyun-Woo began to sing, and something magical happened. He wasn't a trained singer. His voice cracked on the high notes and wavered on the low ones. But when he sang about missing his wife, about watching her fade away despite all their hopes and prayers, about holding Wu Jin while they both cried at her funeral, his imperfect voice carried more real emotion than all the perfect Corvani harmonics combined. The song told the story of loss as Commander Talresh had demanded, but it also told the story of what came after loss, how love continued even after death, how memories could warm you in the dark, how a father and son could take care of each other and find new reasons to smile. As the three human voices wove together, something unprecedented began to happen in the grand resonance chamber. The Corvani nobles found themselves responding, their crystal bodies beginning to resonate with frequencies they had forgotten they could feel. One by one, they began to join in. It started with High Harmonist Kethrin, his ancient voice adding deep bass notes that spoke of his own long-buried memories of loss. Then Empress Veltara's voice rose above the others, carrying harmonics that told of the loneliness of command, of decisions that saved the Empire but cost individual lives. Even some of the younger Corvani began to sing, their voices uncertain, but growing stronger as they rediscovered emotions their elders had taught them to suppress. The song became something neither species could have created alone. Human emotion gave warmth to Corvani mathematical perfection. Corvani harmonic mastery gave structure to human feeling. The result was music that spoke to the deepest parts of every being in the chamber. Commander Talresh stood frozen as the song washed over him. Against his will, he found himself remembering a young soldier who had died under his command centuries ago. A soldier whose name he had forced himself to forget because grief was considered weakness. The song reached its crescendo and then slowly, gently faded to silence. For a long moment, the only sound in the vast chamber was the quiet weeping of 10,000 crystal beings who were feeling real emotion for the first time in centuries. Empress Veltara stood from her throne, and when she spoke, her voice carried new harmonics, warm, rich tones that spoke of wonder and gratitude. The test, she said, was not just about music. It was about whether these humans could teach us something we had lost. They have proven that our strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to feel. She looked directly at Commander Talresh. Do you still believe them to be primitives? The military commander's crystal skin flickered through colors as he struggled with emotions he had not felt in centuries. Finally, he spoke, and his voice was different, softer, more uncertain. Perhaps, he said quietly, we are the ones who have been primitive. 6 months later, Hyun-Woo stood in a room that would have been impossible to imagine when he first met the Corvani. The Human Corvani Cultural Center was built from both crystal and metal, combining the best of both species' architecture. Warm lights from human technology mixed with the natural glow of Corvani crystal, creating something beautiful and entirely new. Through the transparent walls, he could see his son teaching a group of young Corvani how to sing a simple Earth song about friendship. The alien children, if children was the right word for beings made of living crystal, were trying their best to copy Wu Jin's warm, emotional style. Daddy bird, baby bird, flying in the sky. Wu Jin sang, his voice as clear and sweet as ever. Stay together, love each other, never say goodbye. The young Corvani voices joined in, their crystal bodies glowing with colors that showed their excitement. Their harmonics were still more mathematical than emotional, but they were learning. More importantly, they were laughing, a sound that had not been heard in Corvani space for centuries. The children learn so quickly, said a familiar voice. Behind him, Hyunwoo turned to see Empress Veltara approaching. She moved differently now than she had during their first meeting, less formal, more relaxed. The rigid crystal crown had been replaced with a simple circlet that seemed to grow naturally from her crystal skull. Your Majesty, Hyunwoo said, bowing slightly. Even after all these months, he still felt amazed that they had become friends. Please, just Veltara, she said as she always did. We are past such formalities. They stood together, watching the children's lesson. Dr. Park was also in the room, working with high harmonist Kethron to record the different ways human and Corvani voices could blend together. Captain Lee had returned to Earth with news of the successful alliance, but he visited often to bring new human families who wanted to be part of this amazing exchange. How are the other colonies responding? Hyunwoo asked. Veltara's expression grew thoughtful. Some embrace the changes, others resist. Commander Talresh has been very helpful in convincing the military worlds that emotion makes us stronger, not weaker. This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. Talresh had become one of the strongest supporters of human Corvani cooperation. The old soldier had discovered that feeling grief for his fallen comrades didn't make him weak. It made him a better leader who cared about the lives under his command. And the Grand Council? They approved the expansion of the Cultural Center, programmed to 50 more worlds, Veltara said with satisfaction, though I think they are most impressed by our military improvements. This was true. Corvani soldiers who had learned to feel emotions like loyalty and compassion fought better than those who followed orders without caring. Ships with mixed human Corvani, crews were more creative in battle and better at working together under pressure. Your Majesty, I mean Veltara, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret it? Changing your whole civilization? Veltara was quiet for a long moment, watching Wu Jin help a young Corvani named Zilara with a difficult note. The alien child's crystal body flashed with joy when she finally got it right. There are some who believe we have made ourselves vulnerable, she said finally. That emotions will make us weak and chaotic like they used to say humans were. And what do you think? I think, Veltara said, her voice carrying warm harmonics that still amazed Hyunwoo, that we were already weak. We had forgotten what we were fighting to protect. We conquered worlds because it was logical, not because we cared about the people living on them. We built an empire, but we lost our souls. Through the wall, they could see Wu Jin finishing his lesson. The human boy was now 9 years old and had grown more confident in his role as a teacher, but he was still just a child who missed his mother and loved his father and liked to share songs with his friends. He doesn't know, does he? Veltara asked gently. How much he changed everything. I've tried to explain it, Hyunwoo said, but to him he was just trying to save his dad. The rest was just singing. Perhaps that's best, Veltara said. Great changes often begin with simple acts of love. The lesson ended, and Wu Jin ran over to his father with Zilara close behind. The young Corvani had become his best friend and constant companion. Dad, did you hear Zilara sing the harmony part? She's getting really good. I heard, Hyunwoo said, ruffling his son's hair. Mom would be proud of both of you. Zilara's crystal skin glowed with pleasure at the compliment. Teacher Wu Jin, tomorrow can we learn the song about the dancing stars? Sure, Wu Jin said excitedly. But first you have to practice the breathing exercises Dr. Park taught us. As the children ran off to play, Veltara and Hyunwoo walked toward the center's main hall. Through the great crystal windows, they could see human and Corvani ships working together to build new stations that would serve as meeting places between their species. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't brought Wu Jin, Hyunwoo said. Your species would probably be extinct, Veltara replied matter-of-factly. Our first response to species that can't communicate properly is elimination. But perhaps that would have been our loss more than yours. They entered the main hall, where a mixed choir of humans and Corvani was practicing for the opening of the next cultural center. The music they made together was unlike anything either species had created alone, technically perfect but emotionally rich, mathematically precise but spiritually moving. Dr. Park looked up from her instruments and waved. Hyunwoo, come listen to this new arrangement. The Corvani soprano section is learning to add emotional undertones to their traditional harmonics. As they listened to the choir, Hyunwoo thought about how much had changed. Earth was no longer alone in the galaxy. Humanity had found not just allies but friends who were teaching them about the mathematical beauty of the universe while learning about the emotional depth of the heart. Veltara, he said suddenly, what do you think our children will be like? Our children? The next generation, kids like Wu Jin and Zilara who grow up together, learning both ways of making music. Veltara considered this. They will be something neither of our species has seen before. They will have Corvani precision and human warmth. They will solve problems we cannot imagine and create beauty we cannot conceive. And they'll probably think we were all pretty silly for taking so long to figure out how to be friends. Undoubtedly, Veltara agreed, her harmonics carrying something that sounded remarkably like laughter. The choir finished their song, and in the moment of silence that followed, both leaders heard something wonderful. The sound of two species learning to sing together, creating harmony from difference, finding strength in what had once seemed like weakness. Somewhere in the practice rooms, Wu Jin was teaching another group of young Corvani a lullaby his mother had sung to him. The simple earth song was being transformed by alien voices, becoming something new and beautiful that belonged to both worlds and neither. And in that moment, Hyunwoo knew that Miran would have loved this. She had always believed that music could bring people together, that songs could build bridges across any distance. She had been right, in ways she never could have imagined. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities that neither human nor Corvani could have dreamed of alone. It would not always be easy. There would be disagreements and misunderstandings, conflicts and challenges. But they would face them together, and they would do it with song. After all, as Wu Jin often said, music was just hugs you could hear. And sometimes hugs were exactly what the galaxy needed.